Hello. Hello. I'm here. Yeah, I'm here finally. I'm just kind of playing around here for a second. I had to make sure everything was in order, but it's still not coming up for me. So you can see me though. That's hopefully. Hi, Kim. Hi, June. Hi, Linda. Hello, everyone. For some reason, just give me a second here. Okay. Whoops, just hang on. Okay. I just had to make sure everything was working okay. Good. And can you hear me okay? Just checking to see if you can hear me okay. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, now I just need to go someplace else here and I'll be right with you. Okay. I just need to make sure that I can see my chat okay. Okay. Oh, there we are. Sorry about that. Okay. Now I just have to make sure everything is nice and wide. Oh, that just... Okay. So I'll watch over here or check the chat over here. Okay. Hi, Miss Allen. I'm so happy that you came to visit today. That's so nice to see. And hopefully everything is working okay. Alrighty here. Okay. Now I think I'm ready to go. I'm just binding it. Pardon me. I am binding a table runner today, and I'm just gonna check for cameras here. Did I miss anybody? Whoops. Okay. Alrighty. I'm just, sorry, I'm just making sure that I can see everything. Pardon me. Frog in my throat. Good, everybody can see what everybody else is saying and you can hear and everything. Okay, so what I have today is I'm just playing around. I think I'm supposed to be going to my daughter's this afternoon, but oh, you're dealing with a virus, Miss Ellen. Oh, but thank heavens it's not that. Well, prayers for you and speedy recovery. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the camera down here, or okay. Oh, I don't want that on there, but we will turn it on. Just give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so what I've got in front of me here, it's not a very good thing, but I have a table runner that I've made, and I'm just going to put the binding on it. And so what I've done so far, hope everybody can still see me and everything. And what I've done so far is I have got my binding, and I cut my binding at the 2.5 inches. That's usually what I use. And I've done a test just to see when I fold it over that it will be covering on the right side, and it'll be covering my stitches. And it usually comes out to about 3/8 of an inch. That my seam allowance, or my seam is 3/8 of an inch. And I've left a big long tail, and I've started about 1/3 of the way down my runner. And make sure if you have any questions or anything, just put them in the comments, and hopefully I'll be able to catch them all for you. So 2.5 inches folded in half, and the test done at 3/8. My sewing machine has a seam guide on it, and I'm using an open toe foot. And you'll see why I'm using the open toe foot as I go along. I've also done my stitching, my first stitching in a pink thread, and it matches the back, but it doesn't matter. This is just so you can see it. Okay, I've put it on, and now I'm going to, with that extra length, I'm going to start stitching right about here. And I'll stitch down to the corner, and I'll show you how I do my corners. So while everybody's coming on here, I will check. And one thing I wanted to tell you again is, remember the lives that I do. If you comment, if you're watching and you comment, you will be entered in the giveaway for my 1,000 subscribers that I reached. And all you have to do is type in the comments in the live chat, and you will be entered into the giveaway. And I hope everybody is happy with that. It will be a $50 gift certificate either to Amazon, or if you're not in Amazon, we'll figure out a way that we can get you the $50 if you're out of the country, like overseas or someplace. Oh, there was something else I was going to tell you, and I can't remember what it is. Yes, it's open. The giveaway is open to everyone. So I hope that helps, that a lot of times the giveaways are only open to certain countries, but this one is open to anyone. Hi, Deb. Sorry it took me a long time to get back to making sure everything was working right. So if you're just watching in the background and you're a subscriber, make sure you comment to be entered in the giveaway. And hopefully I'm going to be doing a couple of lives so you can enter. Okay, so I think I'm ready to sew. At least I'm going to give her a whirl anyway. So I'm going to now switch the camera, and I'll switch it so you can see me as I'm sewing. And, oops. Just give me, there we are. We're at the sewing machine. And like I said, I've got my seam guide on. And you can't see that because, oh yes, you can. Oh, you watched Sandra Kay's video while waiting. Oh, I didn't know she had one up. Oh, is that the last one she did? Because I think I watched that one. Okay, and chat amongst yourselves or watch or do whatever you like. I'm just going to move some stuff out of the way here. Okay, so where I had done my test, I'm just going to go over that now. I've done it with a basting stitch, but I can stitch over that right now. And I'm lining up my foot. And I'm going to be stitching with a 2.5 stitch length, and I'm going to do a back stitch right there as I start. And I wanted to get this table runner done, needle down. So I'm just going to start stitching, and with my bindings, I do give my binding a little bit of tension when I'm sewing it on. Hopefully oh, okay, it was the one on Kathy's quilt. Okay. Yeah, I watched part of that. I had a few interruptions, so I'll have to go back and watch the replay. So I'm just putting just slight tension on my binding. And what else have we got here? Okay. So I'm just going to stitch down to the corner. The table runner that I made is made out of polyester cotton, and it's got a lightweight batting in it. So I'm just going to stitch away here. June Hanson and everybody else is here. So I'm coming down to the corner, and because my seam allowance that I determined by my little test there that I did is about 3/8 of an inch, and when I come down to this area right here, when I sew my binding on, I'm going to use a little ruler that it's an omni-grid ruler, and it has the 45 and the 60-degree markings on it, and I believe, yeah, 60, but I'm looking for the 45-degree line. So no matter what my seam allowance is, if I do this, it'll always end up proper, that I don't have to measure 3/8 of an inch in to know where I stop. So I'm lining up the 45-degree mark on the edge of my table runner, and I'm putting the tip right there at the point. And I'm going to draw a line with a marking pen, and I think I will use a pink one. And right there, I'm going to just mark a line so I can see it. So no matter what my seam allowance is, if I stitch right to that line, it should be exactly where I want to stop. So I'm going to stitch to that mark, and then I'm going to pivot and stitch off. So I'll stitch to the line, and when I got my needle right in that point, I'm just going to move my seam guide out of the way and pivot and make sure everything lines up properly. And that line should be coming right at the point. And that's my 45 when I'm coming here, and I'm just going to stitch right off the end. So hopefully that makes sense. And Linda Denton, hello. So I've stitched off the end, and I have my bias coming right to that point on my table runner. I'm just going to clip my threads. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in here like this, and I'm going to pull my binding back so that my binding is in a straight line with the edge of my table runner. And that's like everybody else does it. And I'm just going to give that a finger press. And then I'm going to take and fold this back to the left and lay everything down so that the folded edge is in line with the right folded edge. And I think that's the way everybody does it, right? What kind of a machine are you using the seam guide on? My machine is a Pfaff Creative 4.5. It's an embroidery machine, and the only metal part on it is the metal plate where my feed dogs and everything are. And my machine is an embroidery machine, and I use a magnetic hoop in it to do my quilting. So, and it's designed, the machine is designed so that you can use magnetic seam guides. And this one is a Dritz magnetic seam guide. And it's, it's just a Dritz magnetic seam guide. That's all it is. Did that answer your question? Okay, now, going back to this now that I have it in this position here, I'm just going to fold it and make sure that it's folding exactly the way I want it. So I'm going to make sure it's folded right up against that edge right there. The only thing I really do different is with the ruler. Now just give me a second. I just need a clip here to hold this before I go ahead and turn it. And I just don't have that quite where I want it, so I'm going to refold it just to make sure that it's doing what I want it to do. So I'll put my little pokey tool underneath and just make sure it's right at the edge there. Now, this is where a lot of people do it different when they're doing here. What they'll do is that they will start stitching. I'll turn this now so you can see it. Hello, Nadine Logan, all the way from France. Nice to see you. And Deb says she has 2 brother machines and she uses magnetic. Yes. Most of the electronics and everything are away from where the magnetic seam guide is going. And I've never had an issue, and I've got a couple of electronic machines. So now some people will start 1/4 of an inch or the seam width, and I can feel where mine is, but I just start close to the edge and lower my presser foot, and I'm going to do a back stitch and then come forward. No problem, Kim. Kim got a call from a doctor. Yeah, I had a couple of those last week. So now when I'm coming down this edge, I'm just going to do a little back stitch. And I don't have to go right off the end. And then I'm just going to come forward. And now I'm going to put my seam guide back on. That just helps with old shaky fingers. So now I'm going to come down across the bottom. Hopefully my sewing machine isn't too loud. And again, I'm just giving slight tension on my binding strip. Now, hopefully I did answer the question. Sometimes I get thinking about things and then it's like, oh, did I answer that question properly? And remember, if you're lurking and not commenting, remember to just make a comment in the live chat and you'll be entered into that giveaway. Now I'm coming to the corner again. And I'm just going to put a clip in my binding so it doesn't wander off on me. I'm keeping everything lined up and squared. I am going to, again, oh, you've got a sensor on, just a minute here. I want to catch that. Okay, yep. Yeah, you just have to check if you're going to use a magnetic, anything magnetic on your machine, that it's not going to harm the electronics. But like I said, I've got 2 machines that are electronic and they've never harmed anything. Okay, so here I'm again at the corner. And I'm going to line up my ruler again with the point right at the edge, and then lining up that 45-degree mark. And again, I'll just, with a fabric marker, and then I'm just going to stitch down until I get right on that mark. Take my magnetic seam guide off so I can pivot it and make sure that it's lined up there, and stitch right off the end, and then fold my corners the same way. Oh, hi Rochelle, great to see you. Oh, thank you. I'm glad it's not making too much noise. And again, I'll fold that over. And look at that, my seam ended right there. Doesn't that always happen? But it's not going to hurt anything. So now I've got it folded back so that everything lines up. And I'm going to make sure everything's flat. Fold the binding to the left. And line up that edge, making sure that it's nice and straight. Hi Gladys, how are you doing? And Deb, I hope you're feeling better. I know you were going through some health issues. So now I'm just going to put that clip back on there. And I'll pivot this again. Make sure everything is lined up. And do my back stitch. And then come forward. Whoops, my back stitch didn't turn quite off there. And make sure everything's lined up. Put my seam guide back on. Oh, yeah, Linda. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is a sensor underneath there that tells me my bobbin is getting low as well. And if, when in doubt, opt for using tape or anything else that if you don't want to use a magnet. By your machine, then, just use a different way. But my machine, because it's an embroidery machine and it uses very, very strong magnets. I can't even remember what they're called. Yeah, and my sensor tells me when the bobbin is getting low. I can also see it. And when my bobbin is getting low, my machine will actually stop and give me the warning, and then I can start sewing again. But yeah, my machine will actually stop. Yes, Gladys, I heard you were on a vacation. You haven't been on Kathy's there for a couple of days. Hopefully that's just temporary. So what is everybody sewing? So Terry, there you are. Oh great, you're sewing while listening? That's all I want. Just listen or watch. But make sure you make that comment so you can be entered into the giveaway. My daughter is supposed to be getting some apples from my granddaughter's school, and she wants me to come over and give her a hand with making apple pies. And I think they've got pears too, so. Can everybody see okay what I'm doing? Oh, Gladys, thank you very much for sharing. Yes, if Gladys can when she's on, and you have a channel that you would like shared, just let Gladys know. And thank you very much, Gladys, for being a moderator and doing that for me. I appreciate it. And when I'm sewing, sometimes I forget to check the chat. So if I miss you, make sure you give me a big holler somehow. And is everyone feeling well today? Oh yeah, Rochelle, if uh again, I am not by any means um technical a technical guru, but I have figured out a lot of things. And I'm alone and I don't have anybody to help me with all this technology stuff, but I have learned a few things. Okay, another corner. Line up that 45-degree angle again. And draw my line. And stitch right up to that line. One more little stitch. And I wish I didn't have to remove my seam guide all the time, but that's the way it is. I pivoted and now I'm going to stitch right off the end. Now my machine, I don't use all the functions that it has. And one thing about my machine, I can press one button. If I set it up correctly, I can press one button. It'll do a tie off, cut my thread, and lift the presser foot for me. I don't have a presser foot bar at the back. It's all done by buttons at the front. Now again, I'm going to fold it to the right, give it a bit of a finger press, fold back. Make sure it's all lined up. put my clip in. Whoop, lost my clip. Hope nobody's bored yet. Yeah, and Rochelle with 3 L's, right? And you're the Red Rebel. Yeah, the last time I think, pardon me, pardon me. The last time I think I had just gotten my blood work taken, and then 2 days later the doctor phoned me and wanted me to come in for results from my blood test. And again, new medication. Nothing serious. Nothing being about 40 years younger wouldn't cure. No problem, Nadine. You're entered into the giveaway. Yeah, so medications again. And mind you, I'm not happy with with this new medication. It's given me a few problems with side effects, but that's not unusual for me. Sorry if the camera's shaking. I'm going a little fast. So Nadine, are you going to be at Stephen Bland's retreat? Oh, Rochelle, I know. I don't know how long you've had fibromyalgia, but I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia when fibromyalgia wasn't cool. And I went through a lot of things that nobody believed me and stuff like that. I I was put on so many different medications and I reacted to so many that I just stopped taking them and did find one. And it's called paroxetine, and that's the one I'm on. Yeah, I've had it for about 35 years. Yeah, 35 years. Um, and I found most of the medications don't work. Okay, I'm coming up to my corner again. Yeah, and prayers to you too. I don't know why, but certain times of the year, I get flare-ups. And mind you, the last couple of flare-ups have been mostly side effects to medication that they tried putting me on that, yes, I've had, before I was diagnosed, they actually cut out bruises out of my legs, and they still didn't know what it was. Now, instead of blaming blaming a lot of things on fibromyalgia, I just say it's old age. As soon as you say fibromyalgia, everybody gives you that look, or they used to. Like, yeah, right. They don't believe it. However, I was lucky enough to have physical symptoms that they could see it. Just checking everything here to make sure it's good. Give it a pivot. Thank you again, Gladys, for sharing that. I appreciate it. I am doing a presentation at Stephen Bland's retreat, his virtual retreat. I'm petrified, but I'll get through it. Well, Rochelle, anytime if you do Zoom or whatever and you need company, just give me a shout. And I don't know where you live, but if you need just some company sewing through Zoom, well, I'm open for that. And anyone else too. I do private Zooms. Haven't done any for a while lately, but oh, I think I'm just about done, or just about down to the last. And now I'm going to stop so that I leave myself lots of room. I'll do back stitch. Actually, Alan, the private Zooms and everything, I haven't done any for a while, but it's just whenever, you know, my email is in the below the, or in the description below the video. And if you send me an email to my Around To It account and just give me your email, then I can set one up. Oh, about Stephen Bland and my sew date. Yeah, well, Stephen Bland does quilting online, not online. He does private Zoom retreats. And his retreat, you have to register. And he's full right now. But I was asked to do a presentation. And guess what it is? Technology. But it's technology and quilting. And I've figured out a way to help me using technology to work with my quilting. Glass, I'm not sure if I'm in your Facebook group. I'll have to double check. Hi, Kelly. How are you doing? I'm sorry if oh, you're in Oklahoma. Okay, it is 3:53 p.m. here right now. I don't know what time it is there. And because I'm in Canada, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what time it is there for you. But I mean, I am, if I'm not sewing, I'm knitting. Oh, I guess I should switch my camera back, shouldn't I? There we are. Okay. There's my ends. Okay, so you're just uh 4 4:54, just about 5 o'clock. Great. Yeah, I like to have company when I sew, and just visiting with people because I live alone and everything. And okay. Oh, you've never Zoomed? Yeah, and Rochelle, I knit, and I knit slippers. Um, and I usually knit about 50 pair for a craft sale that I go to in November. Okay, so now I've got my bindings stopped. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my ruler and my ruler. Where did we put the ruler? Why is it that you lose things? Oh, I'll use my tape measure. Well, I have really lost that. Oh well, onward. Yeah, Nadine, yeah, you're about 8 hours difference. Oh, Ellen, that's great. I'll have to, like I said, contact me by email and tell me that you'd like to join in a Zoom sew day, and I'll set one up. Sometimes I just come on randomly. Oh, there's my ruler. Okay. This is the part I used to hate, but I think I've got it down now. So I'm going to use a 12-inch ruler, and I'm just going to center it in between there, and I'm going to mark it at 6 inches. Just use a friction pen, and that's where I want my join to be. So this is where I hated it. I am using a 2.5-inch strip. So half of that is 1.25. And what you're supposed to do apparently, okay, I'm just going to take this and line that up and mark it. Now I know this is the long way to do it, but it's the only way I do it that I don't mess it up, because I used to mess it up every single time. So from this side, I put that mark. Now I've marked my binding. And what I need is 2.5 inches, but my binding is 1.25 folded in half. So from that mark there, I'm going to measure over and put a mark. So that's 1.25. If my pardon me, if my binding was narrower than this, great, Rochelle. Yeah, yeah, I use Streamlabs OBS, and that's what I've learned to set up my cameras. I'm going to go back and read the check so I'm not missing anything. So from that center mark, I've measured over 1.25 inches. So if my binding was less than that, that's how far I would measure over. And I'm just going to cut my binding right there. I used to be petrified, but I use the bias joint. So now on this one, I'm going to line this up with that center mark that I've made. And I'm going to put my ruler there, draw a line, and go over 1¼ inches. And I'll cut that off there. Like I said, I keep losing things. Yeah, Kelly, my daughter and I, we share a Zoom. So we Zoom together as well. So now that I have that that line there, 1¼ inch there, when I put this one back, the distance between my two cut edges should be 2½ inches, which was the original width of my binding before I folded it. Now, how do I get it so I don't get anything confused? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my two pieces, and I'm going to, I've glued my cut edges down so that it would be easier for me rather than pinning. So I've got them glued. Don't use a glue stick like I did. So there I have my two ends. Anybody else get freaked out when they go to do this with binding? So there they are. So I'm going to take them and I'm going to, with the wrong sides, I'm going to place them up like this. Hopefully I'm still in camera range. So there's that one like that, and this one like this, with the wrong sides of the fabric facing down. Now all I have to do is take the right one and put this cut edge against this cut edge. And put them together like this, just like I was doing a bias strip. And then you always want to go, when I'm doing it this way, I want to go, my line should be left to right. So I should be stitching it left, top left to bottom right. Hi, Janine. Thanks for dropping by. You are now entered into the giveaway if you haven't entered yet. So I'm just going to pull this up, lay these flat. So is this the way you do your bindings? Okay, everything's laid flat. So again, I'm going to use my little ruler with the 45-degree line. And I'm going to line up my 45-degree line with my top left corner. So it's right on there. And everything is in a 45-degree line. Or I can line it up with the bottom right here and draw my 45-degree line. Either way works. You just have to make sure that your tip is right on there. So I'm just going to draw my line. Yeah, Hi, Barb. You hate this part of binding? I used to because I couldn't get it figured out in my head. But now when I lined it up there and drew my line, it came out to exactly where I wanted it to be. And that's why I've left quite a space in between, because I want to be able to stitch that down without having to work in a real tiny space. Not only that, if I mess it up and do something wrong, I can always do it in a straight line. Pins. Where'd you put your pins, woman? So now I'm just going to put a couple of pins in and just take this to the sewing machine and stitch down. And I do have pink thread in my machine. So just give me 1 second while I change my thread. Thank you, Ellen. I will check for it. Oh, I'm so glad to see everybody here today. Okay, let's put some green thread in here. So you could chit-chat amongst yourself while I get my thread changed. And I am going to switch everything over here. I'll change my bobbin. Would you like to see? Just a minute here. Whoop. There. Anyway, I'm just going to change my bobbin out. Put green thread in there. Whoopsie. Cut my thread and I didn't want to. When I first got my sewing machine, I didn't have my other machines weren't top loading. And I put it in wrong. Read the instructions and everything, but still put it in wrong. Yeah, it's not that I've been out of my sewing room. Like, I did finish my butterfly quilt to the point of I just need to sandwich it and quilt it. And I think what I'll do is I will do a video and showing you how I quilt it using my sewing machine and setting up the magnetic hoop and everything. Oops. And one thing that I like about my FAF 4.5, and I can't talk or speak to any other machines or any other models, but this one, what I really like about it is that it has some settings. Now I can press the down button on my machine because it doesn't have a presser foot lifter. I press the down button and my foot will go down. If I press the up button, it will lift my presser foot up, and I can lift it up one more time, which gives a higher space. But the feed dogs go down as well. And then when I start stitching, those feed dogs come back up again. And I really like that feature, because when I'm sewing, like I'm going to sew here, and I'm going to sew that bias strip, and I'm going to start right at the edge. And my line looks a little funny there. There's a little line right here, and I'm going to line that up. And my feed dogs have not come up yet. So it's not catching any fabric underneath. My needle goes into the fabric and my presser foot lifts so I can get everything lined up. Presser foot down just by pressing on the foot pedal. And now I can start sewing, and if I need to do a little back stitch, I'll do 2 stitches back and then come forward. And my fabric doesn't get caught on those feed dogs. And that's one of the reasons why when you start out sewing is that your feed dogs will catch on fabric. And that's where you'll get those catches and it starts out goofy. Okay, I'm just going to stop here and just read a couple of chats here so I don't. Yeah, Kelly, I think I was at your live, the last live you did. Now, before I get to the end, I'm going to do a couple of stitches back. Just a little locking stitch and then come forward. I never do a back stitch right at the edge. I always do my back stitching about 1/4 of an inch away from the cut edge. Now, what am I doing here? Okay. And it feels like I've got a thread catch here. There we go. Just trim. Seem to have a lot of threads here. Okay. Whoop, there we are. Okay, so here I am. That's why. And that's how I stitched it. And remember, now I should be able to just fold it down like this. And it's in the right position and it's not twisted. I used to always get it twisted before I used this method. So now that I know it's in the right spot and everything fits, it's not too loose, I'm just gonna fold everything out of the way, and I'll just trim 1/4 of an inch away from that seam line. And I know I was talking about something else, but I can't remember what it was. And I can't see that. The thread is blending in too much. So let's trim it off with some shears. Finger press that seam open. So Kelly's gonna try every other Friday. Yeah. I know my lives aren't scheduled or anything like that because it seems I can never make plans. I had plans when I did my last live that I was going to do more, but then when I got the call from the doctor that he wanted to see me again, and then I have blood work taken every 2 weeks, so it was like, yeah, if I get another blood test that doesn't come back right, then it's back to the drawing board, back to the doctor, and I've stopped making plans. Okay, Gladys, are you still here? Okay, so now I'm just putting this into the position that I want it to be, making sure my seams are open. And I'm just going to put a pin. And I'm going to put my pin. My head's getting in the way, isn't it? Ah, what a head. Oh, I should do my hair when I'm on YouTube. Oh, Gladys, did you get to share Kelly's Cruises and Crafts? Kelly's Cruises, Crafts, and Quilts. If you didn't share her channel, if you could, I'd appreciate that. Okay, I've got my binding in place, and I put my pins. I don't put my pins in up and down. I usually put them in sideways. I find that I don't get as much distortion by putting them in sideways, and I always bury the head of my pin so that it's underneath and not on top. No problem, Barb. Okay, so now I'm just going to stitch that final seam down. Line everything up. I guess I should go back here. So where I left off, I'm just going to do a little back stitch, come forward. Guess I'll put my seam guide on. I have my machine on a slower speed because sometimes I'll get a little more pressure on my foot, and then it just goes all over the place. My hands don't like to handle that. Thanks, Gladys. I really appreciate that. If it hadn't been for people sharing my channel, I don't think I'd have the subscribers I do today. So that's why I like to help other channels out. Now I'm just trimming my threads. And I seem to have a lot of fraying going on. Okay. Now, I know that some of you are able to just fold your binding over, and so a lot of people will sew from the right side and then do hand binding on the back, and I don't. There, how's that? You can see what I'm doing. Anyway, right now, everything's laying the way, but like I said, a lot of people will bind their quilts and they will stitch it down by machine on the right side and then flip it to the back side and hand stitch. And I love hand stitching. I'm just not good at it. So that's why I do it by machine. And Ellen, thank you for coming. We'll see you next time, hopefully. Okay, so now, now I'm going to take, and from the wrong side, I can just either finger press on my corners. I'm going to push my finger in, and then I have a little mini Dritz iron. And what I like about it is that it's shaped, it's got a point and everything on it, and I can just take that and shove it into the corner, and it gives me a nice bias fold there. And a lot of times I don't press. This is very thin, so I'm not even going to bother pressing everything around, because the way I do the next step, it's a little different than everybody else does. Maybe some of you do it as well, but I'm just going to press my corners with the little mini iron. I'm just trimming off some threads here I have that I didn't cut when I was going over that. Now, just press on that. And again, you can see all the fraying, that it's because I'm using a poly cotton. Now here's where I use pins, and I use lots of them. So now I'm going to flip this over. And now I'm going to be stitching this down. So I'm going to pull this forward to the right side so it covers that stitching. Now, I haven't pressed it or anything. And now I can feel with my finger the edge of my binding on the inside. So I'm going to take my pins, and with that folded over like that, I want to be stitching about 1/8 of an inch away from my folded edge of my binding. So I'm going to put a pin in where I want the stitching to be. And then I'm going to bury the head of my pin down so that it's either in between the layers or on the back side. When I flip it over, I can see exactly where my stitching is going to be by looking at that pin on this side, on the wrong side. And that's how I do my bindings. And then when I come to the corners, I'll show you what I do with those. And I usually do my corners after I get my 2 side edges done. Now, I've tried all sorts of different ways, but for me, this is the way I've found that I get my bindings to look neat, both on the on the top and the underneath part. So I'm just burying the head of my pin there. And I'll just go Is that question for me, Rochelle? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that question was for me. So now at the corners, if you can just let me know, Rochelle, if that, you said that's pretty. I love dragonflies. What pattern is that? Now, um, on this, no, actually, it's the the pattern is just I guess a leaf. Is that what you were asking? Yeah, it's just a leaf. I was practicing putting together half square triangles into this design. Hope that answers your question. Okay, now I know that today is Thursday and Susan, Shady Susan, Susan Shade comes on at 5, I believe. Yeah, it looked like dragonfly wings. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, not a problem. So one of these is a little too close, so I'm just going to use my fingers and put my pin in again. It was just a little too close. That's a little better. So at the corners, this one folds in to the right. So this one will fold, I'll line it up, and then I'll put it into the finished position. And so one of the insides is going this way, and I don't know why it's being finicky here, just because I'm on camera. Let's give that another little pull here. Line this up, fold it, and my fold, when I'm stitching, I'm going to be stitching and I'm putting this way. I'm going to stitch here and I'll stitch down to the corner. So I have my fold so that the fold is pointing away from the direction of my stitching. Thanks, Barb. And the reason for that is I don't want to be pushing. If I folded this the other way, then I'll be stitching and my presser foot will probably push into that fold right there. So that's why I fold it up like this and then down. Now when I put my pin in to get there's my mitered corner. Instead of putting my pin in like this, and again, my pin is right along the stitching line, and I'm going to look on this side to see where my pin is coming out. But I've learned if you take and on the stitching line where you're going to be stitching, put a pin in right along the stitching line at that mitered corner and poke it through straight. You can see where it's coming through, and it's coming through on the binding a little bit. And I don't want that to show because I'm going to be using pink thread in my bobbin and green on the top. So this is where I adjust it. And put my pin straight in, exactly where my stitching is going to go. And there it's going to be right there. And you can see, hopefully you can see that it's coming out on my backing, not on my binding. So then I will take and continue around the whole quilt. The whole quilt, the whole table runner. And that head of that pin is coming out there, so I want to make sure it's all lined up. So I am just going to stitch up because it's a matter of just stitching the last little part. So I'm only going to stitch a portion of it just to show you how I do it. And then I'll show you a finished one where my stitches, that's my, won't do that quarter, I'll do this one because that one is where my join is. The colors I used on this are just colors that I had of 65 poly, 35 cotton. And because, like I said, I was a garment maker, so I had lots of it. And I thought, a quilt's a quilt. It'll probably last longer than 100% cotton. And it's only for decoration. I don't have a whole bunch of fabrics and cottons. My finances don't allow me to buy all the pretty stuff. So I'm just finishing up this here, pulling my binding, and I'll pin that corner in, and then I'll just do a close-up of how I stitch the corners. So leaving that point undone, poking my pins in where my stitching line is, and just checking to make sure that it's not going on to the green. And I can feel the edge of that stitching where my binding is. And I've got green in the top and bottom, so you'll be able to see where my stitching is going to go. And I wanted you to see with a different color thread where you can see how it looks with seeing a different color thread. I will use a pink thread in my bobbin and a green thread in my green thread in the upper. A little fiddly. And mainly because my hands don't like to work sometimes. Wish I could just do it zip, 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 and then you'd think I was a genius, right? No, I'm not a genius. Yeah, I know. I've kind of let my the perfectionist in me, kind of let it go. It doesn't show as bad, but I still get that. And my machine's supposed to have automatic tension. However, it always shows a little bit. So I have that pinned straight in there, and I can see it coming out on the pink. So now I'm just going to stitch down, and I'll show you how I do it at the sewing machine. I can take my seam guide off, and I will switch the camera to the sewing machine so you can get a good look at that. Make sure everything's working here. There we go. Yep. Okay. And now I don't back stitch. I always bury my threads. But here, this is how I stitch around the whole quilt, or quilt table runner. Oh, I know why I'm having problems. Sorry about that. I should have pinned a little further because it's not staying down. I could use Wonder Clips, but I find Wonder Clips don't let me see that I'm getting everything in the right position. Bury that point. Okay, now I have enough room so that pin behind is holding it and the pin in front is holding it. And now I can just eyeball, put my presser foot down. There's a little red mark right in the center of this foot, and that's where I'm going to line up my stitching. My needle has gone down now. I can take this out, and I'm using a 2.5 stitch length. And when I use my little pokey tool or my fingernail, if you don't have a fingernail, use a pokey tool or something, and you can actually feel where that stitching is going to go along where you sewed it on the first time. So with my pokey tool, I'm just going to eyeball it. Keep feeling all the way along there. Remove my pins as I go. And just I can feel underneath. And because I'm using an open toe, I can stitch right up against, or right up to the point of my pokey tool. And when I come to the corner, I'm only going to pull my pin out part way. It out a bit more. And now I'm going to take it right out. And as I'm folding that into the finished position, again, I can feel where the edge of that binding is. Use my pokey tool. And now here is, I'm at the corner. I can now remove my pin, take my pokey tool, and make sure everything is pulled into the finished position and I have a nice miter. Use my pokey tool to hold it down. And I think I caught my binding. but that's okay. Pivot. If you want to do a second or a back stitch, I would come forward one and then go back. But I'm just going to come along. I've missed that a bit. My camera is right in front of me here, so I'm looking at my needle just a little bit off. So I just continue around the whole table runner like this. And now I'm just going to take this out and just see how well I did. And then I'll show you one that does work out good when I'm not in front of the camera. Oh, not too bad. And of course, I'll give you a close-up here. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in a bit. So you can see, if I would have matched the thread, you wouldn't be able to see that. And there's my corner on the wrong side. And this is my corner on the right side. A little sloppy, mainly because the camera is in my way a bit. So I couldn't get it adjusted the way I wanted it. But now I will show you close up on one that did turn out beautifully. And most of the time, if I'm not doing it on camera, it comes out this way. So here I have a small table runner. I'll just show you in the other camera here. Okay, here it is, just a small table runner that I was practicing, again, putting stuff together, and this is all poly cotton as well. So when I put my binding on, Rochelle, oh my gosh, thank you so very much. It's not necessary. Oh, but it's much appreciated. You're such a sweetheart. Oh my gosh. Nobody's ever done that for me. You're the first. Wow. Yeah. Anyway, control myself here. Okay, I'll show you what it usually turns out like. Okay. Here I'm back here, and I'm gonna just adjust this a bit, but I want you to see what it looks like. Here is, I've used red thread in the top and white in the background, and that's what my miter looks like. And I'll explain about the miter in a second, but you can see, and I just eyeballed this all the way along. That's not showing very good, but now I'll show you what it looks like from the back. So you can see, here is my line of stitching in white, and there is my corner, and it's stitched all, I've stitched all the way down, and I'll show you the other corner. There is the other corner, and I do thank you, Linda. Yeah, sometimes they turn out nice and sometimes they don't. But the other trick is that I glue my miters down. Stephanie from Stephanie's Stitches said that when you put quilts into shows, that they do check and make sure that your corners of your binding, the miters, are secure, that you can't put your finger in. So I glue them down with fabric glue. if I ever enter something into a quilt show, well, I'll have my corners on my binding, okay. But you can see there, that's hopefully, can you see that okay? Where the stitching is there, and you can see my white bobbin thread through there. Yeah, it's just a hint, and I don't mind it. You know, when you're looking at it from a distance or whatever. And I figure when they wash it or whatever, it will it'll crinkle up a bit, even though it is polyester and everything. That you can see where it's not that noticeable. And again, I've used blue thread here. Well, you can't see that. I've used blue thread here, and if I pull back my strip, this strip covers it over, and I've used different colors, and it doesn't really show that much. And if I had this in a quilt show, if I was going to put something in a quilt show, I probably would hand bind it. It would be messy, but oh, slip stitch, yeah, the miters down, yeah, I've done that too. But most of my things, like I haven't. I just started doing it not too long ago after Stephanie mentioned that, and my daughter has tons of table runners that I've made her, and she's washed them. I mean, they're in the wash just about once every 4 days, and they haven't come out. So, yeah, Linda, yeah, and I just use fabric glue and press them down with an iron, and I think they come out pretty good. My miters aren't always perfect. Like I said, I'm a perfectionist, but I'm not perfect. But I do like things to be accurate. That's and a lot of times I'll go over to my daughter's place and she'll have one of the table runners that I put on her table, and I'll come over and I'll say, "My goodness," I said, "I can't believe I did that." And I'm looking at it and it's still together and it hasn't worn out and it's still usable. So anyway, now I'll go back to the desk. And did anybody want to see it up close, or were you able to see it? Um, so that's about how I do my binding. Yeah, and at any point, if I will use glue, um, I usually uh, use permanent fabric glue, and I'll use a pin or whatever just to stick it underneath there, and then I'll press it. And so off camera, I'll finish that up because I know that it's time for. I can never remember. It's Shady Susan. It's Susan Shade. Um, can someone help me out here? What her channel is? Sewing Sensations with Shady Susan, or with Susan. Anyway, I think she comes on at 5 o'clock at my time, and it's 4:48 p.m. right now. And I don't know how long we've been on. Hopefully, you found everything interesting, and you'll come back again when I do another live. Yeah, fabric tack. Yep, any fabric, permanent fabric glue. Good. I'm glad you could see it good. And oh, and behind me, I did finish all my. I got talking last time, and I didn't get around to finish. Get this? Didn't get around to it. Um, you're supposed to laugh at that. I don't see any ha-has yet. Anyway, um, I did get around to finishing it. And I did add, I was going to make it square, and then I decided no, I wanted a little bit longer. And I put a narrow border in black, and then I put another border in white. And at the side, I don't know whether you can see it, but I think I'm going to do black. Thanks, Linda. Thank you very much. Anyway, I'm going to use, I think, a black stripe for the binding. And then, but I still have to quilt it. So, but thanks everyone. Yeah, hence the name of my channel. So that's about it for today. Thanks for sharing your time with me. I do appreciate it. Thank you to the moderators who have shared channels, and your names are going to be entered into the drawing for the $50 cash that is available for anyone as long as you are a subscriber and subscribe, as long as you're a subscriber and comment in one of the videos in the live stream, you will be entered into that draw. And like I said, I was going to do it on the 4th, which is my birthday, but however, my daughter has booked a getaway for us in the mountains, so I will be away on my birthday, and I might just extend it so more people can enter the drawing. Thanks for the giveaway, which never win, but you never know. That's right. If you don't enter, you can't win. And yes, and thank you. And I don't know when I'll go live. I probably will be at my daughter's this weekend because it is, I believe, Thanksgiving weekend in Canada here. So I'll be over there making pies and I think pears, canning some pears. Maybe I'll even go live from over there as I'm making pies for her. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll let you go because I want to go and watch Susan and chat in her chat. So hopefully we'll see everybody over there. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.